U.S. would lose a war with China fought in the Pacific, is unable to defend Taiwan from an invasion, and fears the Guam military base is at risk now, Pentagon sources warn. A lot of people have said that China's a paper tiger, that they would never be able to actually stand up against us. But what people don't realize is that U.S. military, as strong as it is drawn thin across the world. And if China focuses its firepower specifically in the South China Sea or in the Pacific, they actually could succeed at pushing us off. I don't know about defeating us, but holding us at bay, to say the least. Now, there have been some reports I've heard that they're doing beaching training. And with the latest strike groups passing through and near Taiwan, there's concern they may seek to invade and take Taiwan. This is why this story is so interesting. But let's read so I can make sure we get the context correct. They say eye-opening Pentagon war games have revealed growing fears the U.S. is vulnerable to threats from China and that any attack would lead to the U.S. suffering capital losses, the sources said. The worrying analysis is expected to come to light in the Pentagon's 2020 China military power report this summer. The stark warning comes as tensions continue to mount between the two nations after U.S. President Donald Trump has blasted China's handling of the coronavirus pandemic and repeatedly suggested the nation lied about the extent of its crisis. Let's not talk about suggestions. Everyone said so. Germany has said so. Look, man, we did the elephant walk in Guam. Apparently, they pulled those planes out because they were concerned it is vulnerable. This lines up with that. Based on what China's been doing and trying to slow things down and cause harm during the pandemic, there's a lot of reasons to suggest we are facing the brink of war. Now, some people have said this is routine. And I brought that point up. Maybe we're just hyper-focused on this stuff. We're bored. We're locked indoors. We're seeing it now. I'm not entirely convinced. I think we are seeing a dramatic, maybe not too dramatic, but we're seeing serious escalation, especially because of the lockdown. They say U.S. defense sources told The Times that one Pentagon simulation based on the year 2030, when China would have new attack submarines, aircraft carriers, and destroyers, resulted in the U.S. being overwhelmed by the nation's force. The threat is more immediate than 2030, however, with every U.S. base in the Indo-Pacific Command region considered to be at risk of attack now because China has ramped up its supply of medium-range ballistic missiles. The U.S. island territory Guam, home to 3 U.S. military bases, is a particular concern, the games revealed. China has long-range anti-ship ballistic missiles and hypersonic missiles, one U.S. defense source told The Times. Analysis from U.S. experts on China have issued similar warnings. Bonnie Glaser, director of the China Power Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington and a consultant for the U.S. government on East Asia, told The Times that Taiwan is the most volatile issue between the two nations and fears tensions would erupt in a nuclear war. Wow, really? Yikes. Taiwan has increasingly found itself caught in the middle of the political games between the two superpowers, and Trump has been vocal in his support for Taiwan. Recently, we learned from Reuters that the state security agency, the Ministry of State Security in China, delivered a report to high-ranking officials in China, including Xi Jinping, warning they must prepare for the worst-case scenario, direct physical confrontation with the U.S., a.k.a. war. I don't know if that means we'll actually see war, but more of these stories keep popping up. We are in a conflict, mind you. A lot of people, they like to bring this up because I guess I don't say it enough. But with China and Russia and other countries constantly engaging in IP theft, cyber war, manipulation, disinformation, yeah, we really are at war. There are serious concerns that China will try to interfere in this upcoming election, and they probably already are. I mean, we see the fake troll accounts, and sometimes they're easy to spot, sometimes they aren't. But we're talking about Chinese intelligence manipulating Americans to vote for something that would favor them in their conflict. That, as far as I'm concerned, it's hard to say if it's an act of war. Kind of is, though. What's the point of war, right? Gain control, take resources. Well, if you can do that without lifting a finger, you can do it by sending ideas and controlling people's minds through social media and manipulation. Then we're dealing with something very serious. The coronavirus caused massive damage to a lot of countries, and China lied about it, exploited it for economic gain. Now we have this. I don't want to say I'm bullish on a full-on war, but I think we're close. The Communist Party in China claims Taiwan as its own territory, but it does not have sovereign control there. Chinese President Xi Jinping has made it clear he wants Taiwan back under its One China principle by 2050, and this week demanded the island accept Chinese status if it wants to be represented at the World Health Organization Assembly next week. Beijing military activities have been ramped up in the South and East China Seas, including harassing carriers and constructing military outposts on artificial islands it has built in the disputed waters. Meanwhile, the U.S. has also increased its military presence in the seas and antagonized China by increasing its ties with Taiwan through boosting arms sales to the country. Every simulation that has been conducted looking at the threat from China by 2030 have all ended up with a defeat of the U.S., said Glazer. Taiwan is the most volatile issue because that could escalate to a war with the U.S., even to a nuclear war. Wow. I mean, that's a bold statement. I've not heard something as extreme as that. I mean, we've talked about maybe regional conflict. We've talked about maybe we get into some kind of conflict with China in the Pacific. But I mean, if it came down to nuclear war, we're talking about mutually assured destruction. What are we talking about? World War III? I think it's a bit extreme, but who am I to say? This is an expert, right? In the Pentagon and State Departments in the White House, China is now seen as the biggest threat. We have been too passive in the past. One source told the Times the regional commander, Admiral Philip Davidson, has also sounded warnings, and the Pentagon is switching its approach in preparation. There's a focus on developing more hypersonic weapons, sending more long-range ground-launched cruise missiles to the Asian-Pacific region, and arming Marine units along China's seas with anti-ship missiles, they said. Mark Esper, the defense secretary, is aggressively moving to build the capabilities that we need to deter China from committing to a major confrontation, they said. On Friday, President Trump announced the U.S. is developing what he called a super-duper missile, which he boasted is 17 times faster than missiles available right now. Okay, President Trump. The super-duper missile is not particularly confidence-building, but I respect the attempt, I guess. Look, I don't like war. I don't like the talk of this stuff, but if you want people to feel safe, man, you got to say something other than super-duper missile. Maybe like, the Killdozer Extreme 9000 or something, but I'll take super duper, I guess. We are building incredible military equipment, he said as he staged a very special moment and unveiled the new flag of the Space Force on Friday. I call it the super duper missile. And I heard the other night 17 times faster than what they have right now. When you take the fastest missile we have right now, you've heard Russia has 5 times and China's working on 5 or 6 times. We have one 17 times. The same day the U.S. revealed a Taiwanese company would set up a factory in Arizona to make computer chips in the U.S., taking custom away from China. Tensions between the U.S. and China have escalated in recent months as the coronavirus pandemic has ravaged the globe. The U.S. has led the charge against China over its response to the pandemic. President Donald Trump has accused Beijing of a series of cover-ups amid the outbreak and said in April he had seen evidence the virus started in the Wuhan virology laboratory. He also warned he could impose tariffs of $1 trillion on China in retribution for the pandemic. Beijing has hit back at the claims, with a spokesman for China's foreign ministry last month warning the enemy is the virus, not China. Well, I'll tell you what, man. For the longest time, China has been extracting our manufacturing, extracting our intellectual property, stealing, cloning, copying, and taking advantage of us. They said that by normalizing trade with China, it would make China more Western. In fact, it didn't. People in this country, in the U.S., politicians just sold us out, outsourcing to a foreign country, and Trump had enough. Trump stepped in. And throughout his administration, there has been ongoing tension between China and the U.S. dealing with the economy. It's been very beneficial to the United States for the most part. Now, the media will try and tell you that all the time, like, oh, no, it was all bad and the tariffs were bad and everything was wrong and Trump's doing subsidies and all these bad things. But our economy was a-booming up on until this coronavirus pandemic hit. Then it negatively impacted one of our aircraft carriers. It's devastated our economy and the economies of many other countries. And who is claiming to be the least affected? China. They're claiming only a few thousand people. We think they're lying. But what if they're not? I don't know. What if they really weren't hit that hard? And what if this is hitting everyone else and China is exploiting it, slowing us down, trying to make things worse? They lied from the get-go. And now we're dealing with the real possibility of war because tensions keep escalating. And I've seen it. There are some products I've looked at that unknowingly, a lot of people don't realize how much is made in China. They're out of stock. Supply chain disruption is here. We got to start bringing things back to this country. If we end up in a war, we're in serious trouble. What's fascinating about this is that I believe I brought this up in a story years ago. I talked about the risk that we face with China because they controlled our manufacturing. And I said, if China decided to declare war on us right now and then snap their fingers, they got all of our factories and resources in their country. They could just do it. And then what do we eat? Our vitamins come from that country, our medical equipment, our antibiotics. Yeah, Trump was right to get us out. But now China seems to be rather upset, and this story looks like bad news for the U.S. Trump also said he wanted to rebuild the military. Maybe they need to do more. I'll leave it there. I will see you all tomorrow on this channel at 10 a.m. Thanks for hanging out.